Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're diving into a really profound philosophy from the Maasai people of East Africa, and it's built around a sacred promise known as the Cattle Covenant.
Now, this poetic opening from our source material, it really sets the stage. This is so much more than just a creation story. You see, for the Maasai, this is an entire framework for community, for leadership, and for our connection to the natural world. And it all revolves around the symbol of cattle.
Okay, let's dive in.
So, this is the big question we're going to unpack in this explainer. We'll be exploring some timeless wisdom that feels, incredibly relevant today. All right, our story kicks off at this world-changing moment, right when the sky and the earth separated. And this is where the Maasai god, Enkai, makes a really pivotal decision. So, Enkai sends the cattle down to the Maasai. But, and this is super important, it's not as a gift to be owned. No, it's a living trust to be cared for. The source material is really specific about this. The cattle literally came down through the sky on a cord of bark, making this direct link between the divine and the earth. And that leads to this powerful distinction, which is the absolute core of the covenant. So let's move on and see how this one idea builds from here. This idea of stewardship rather than ownership, it fundamentally changes everything. So what does that actually mean in practice? Well, it's a relationship defined by responsibility, not by rights. The obligation is just there. It exists beyond your personal preference or what's convenient. Now, what's really interesting is how clearly this contrasts the two ideas. For a steward, the quality of their care isn't measured by how many cattle they pile up. It's measured by the health of the herd, especially during the toughest times. And that brings us right to the greatest test of the covenant, the hardship of drought, which, for the Maasai, has its own sacred meaning. You see, the Maasai understanding of their god, Enkai, isn't simple at all. It's this duality that holds both abundance and scarcity as sacred. You have Enkai Narok, the god of rain and plenty, and then you have Enkai Nanyokie, the god of drought and testing. Now, it's so important to get this. They aren't good and evil. They are two faces of the exact same single sacred authority. And this just brilliantly illustrates the philosophy. Hardship isn't seen as some kind of divine abandonment. It's the moment when the community's faithfulness is really put on display, when it's examined most completely. So, because of this, their response is action, guided by wisdom. They move the cattle to where the water is, and they really focus on maintaining those community bonds that the covenant absolutely requires. Which brings us to a huge question. If the covenant is a trust, who is the trustee?
Well, the source is crystal clear on this. No single person is the steward. The entire community is.
This creates this incredibly resilient social fabric where responsibility is shared, not just dumped on a single leader. And you can see it in action. The warrior's bravery, the elder's judgment, the healer's knowledge. Each one of these roles is a direct expression of the covenant's demands. They're all essential forms of stewardship. So, the crucial point is that the herd, and by extension the entire community, it only thrives when every single part of that social body fulfills its sacred obligation. And this brings us to the covenant's ultimate expression, something that's rooted in the very land the cattle walk on. You see, by moving the herds, they allow overgrazed land to rest, and that rest is the specific condition that allows for renewal. It isn't a promise of, uninterrupted abundance or a life without any challenges. It's something much, much deeper and way more reliable. And that just brilliantly illustrates the entire philosophy, doesn't it? The renewal of the land is the most faithful evidence that the stewardship is working. It's a testament that in a world where the sky both gives and withholds, a covenant of care creates the conditions for life to return again and again.